So I will get to the heart of my presentation this morning, which is talking about MasterControl frequent release. And I'm standing in for Brian Curran here. He's our Senior Vice President of Product Management. If you've been to Salt Lake City to the Masters Summit, you may have met him before or in the office there in Salt Lake. He gave this presentation at the Masters Summit in October, right after we released version 11.0. So I'm just going to go over what frequent release means to you as customers, to us as a software vendor, what the benefits are, some things that you need to be aware of as we embark on this new journey at MasterControl. So if you remember, yesterday morning we looked at the mission of MasterControl, to bring great product, to make great products available to more people sooner. So how do we do this at MasterControl? We do our part by delivering more value to you as clients in the software sooner. So if you think about the way we develop software in the past, version 11 was in development for a very long time. There were a lot of enhancements built up in version 11 that took years to get to you, our customers. So how do we get those enhancements to you sooner and fulfill our mission? We do that by getting everyone on what we call the MasterControl release train. If you think about the way a train operates, it's on a schedule, isn't it? It comes and goes at a certain time every day. That's the idea behind frequent release. It's on a very predictable schedule. It comes and goes on that schedule all the time. So for anyone that's ever heard of Simon Sinek and his golden circle, he talks about why, how, what. John spent some time at the conference last year talking about this. So this kind of lays out an agenda for the presentation today. Why do we want people on the frequent release train? This is value. We want to get that value to you sooner. How do we do that? Traditional release versus frequent release. And then what is it? What does it mean? So those are the points that we'll go over today. So the train is coming. As if you guys remember this movie, Jerry Maguire, from several years ago, Show Me the Money. We're going to show you the value. How do you get more value out of MasterControl? It's a nice little train ticket there to the frequent release train. So if you look at some of the things that are happening at MasterControl right now, things that we're able to do and deliver much sooner than we would have in the past on, say, a version 12 that could come in 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, depending on how big that release gets. The current route builder. You guys have all seen this. You're going to add users. You have the little pop-outs and everything. How many of you have seen that? Yeah. I see it frequently, right? The Java, because you got the wrong version or you don't have it installed, you may not have admin privileges to your machine, so it can become tiresome. We are eradicating the Java runtime environment from all aspects of MasterControl. This is what the new workflow builder will look like. I mentioned yesterday the addition of a user experience team, UX UI at MasterControl. This is the type of thing that they're doing. Very clean design. They do a lot of research as to where things are placed, why they're placed there, fewer clicks, how far you have to move the mouse from one side of the screen to the other. But this is, no Java. You'll be able to run your route builder, anyone, in just any browser. No plugin required. So this is one of the things coming on the frequent release train. Organizers. This goes back to the dirty caps enhancement. Current organizer. Again, we get this similar thing here. And this one is even more prevalent because we have lots of users accessing organizers. We do have the current HTML view, which eliminates the Java dependency, but it still looks very much the same as the old Java-based organizer. This is what the new organizer will look like. That is coming in 11.3, if I remember correctly. It's set up to function much more like Windows Explorer. Something that people are very familiar with. They probably use it every day. So again, very clean design, large, readable fonts. You're not squinting to try to find what you're looking for, or zooming in on your browser. This is the future of what MasterControl is going to look like. Training folder. Again, how many people have users that get confused with their training folder? I get confused sometimes, and I've been here 9 years. So the training folder is undergoing a dramatic refresh. This is what the training folder is going to look like. Very quick dashboard-like status meters for your users. They can see exactly where they're at with their training tasks, where they're at in compliance to their training plan, percentages. Very quickly, it looks much more like a current web page that you'd see. So exciting things in the training module. I do know as well that the training task is currently being overhauled. That's probably the one spot in MasterControl that people go to the most if you look at your user base. They get a training task, they have to go in and they have to train to that. Well, they get there and they're not always sure what to do. So there is a major effort going on in the training task right now. I don't have any screenshots with me. I don't know if somebody from the staff, maybe Steve Harrison. If not, he can get access to it. So how many of you, when you bought MasterControl, were going paperless? That was the idea, right? No more paper, we don't want paper. Or did you just end up with less paper? There are still a lot of things like this. You've got this binder full of forms, things like work orders, maintenance logs. There are all kinds of things that probably are still on paper. MasterControl, for those of you interested, has created an easy button for getting these types of paper-based forms into MasterControl. So if you have the process module, it isn't always very easy to just pull up Notepad and start coding in HTML if you don't have that development background. So the easy button that we've created to get those forms into MasterControl is what we call compliant eForms. And the basis of that is our new form builder tool. I know several of you were in the HTML class on Monday. You got a preview of that. For those of you that weren't in that, Mark Sloan has a session this afternoon to go over that form builder tool. The tool is integrated into the platform in 11.3, and that one I know for sure. And 11.3 is scheduled to launch in the first half of June. So we're just a few weeks away from that. So compliant eForms, the tool that you use to build the form itself is Excel. How many people use Excel? Almost daily. Nearly all of us, right? If you can use Excel, you can build a form in MasterControl. One of the really nice things about the tool is that the output that creates the form in MasterControl is mobile ready. So if you've got forms that you want somebody to access on a mobile device, a tablet, or their phones, the output is going to be a responsive design. So as you go from your desktop screen down to your phone, the form is automatically going to scale to fit within that device's screen size. So some very cool things there. I know somebody was trying to create a 3-column form in the Excel tool on Monday. In 11.3, you, out of the box, get 3-column forms. So you can do 1, 2, 3 columns. There's all kinds of things that you can see in there. If you're interested, go see Mark's session this afternoon. Supplier. So we came out with the supplier module. I actually was still in product management then and worked on the design of the supplier module. It's been several years ago now. Supplier has not had a significant refresh since it came out. So today, supplier looks something like this. You know, it's got all the information there, but I'd be surprised if anyone can read it from where you're sitting. You know, again, that older interface that isn't as friendly as it could be. This is what supplier looks like now. This is a supplier dashboard view. It's the top level. There are 2 levels below this that give you more detail. But this is something that you could even share with your suppliers that have never seen MasterControl before. You know, the pertinent information is right there, front and center. You can see very quickly what their quality record looks like, any of the parts and materials, components that they may be delivering to you. All the information is right there. This is a very good preview of the MasterControl of the future, what all of our modules are going to look like. So a lot of effort being placed in the user experience and the way that people interact with MasterControl. We're all very used to these little devices now. Yet all of your apps are right there. You know, it's a tiled type interface. You know, those are the kinds of things that you're going to see, making MasterControl more like the things that people use every day. Ultimately, we'd like it to not require training at all for the end user. That's our goal in user experience. Current audit calendar, this is something that's already in the product. It's what it looks like today. Again, much cleaner, much easier to use. This is something that's on the roadmap. It's in the early stages of development. An application for handling electronic batch records and electronic device history records, block history records. This is one of the last bastions of paper. We see in the marketplace that people either have a multi-million-dollar manufacturing execution system with, you know, it's highly customized, it takes years to implement, or they have paper. There's really nothing in between. MasterControl is looking to fill that gap. I believe we can bring immense value to the manufacturing side of the house in this area.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you integrating that with process control systems?
So the initial plan is not to integrate it, to stay away from the automation side, and just, we call it paper on glass initially. Yeah. And then as we go along, fold in more and more functionality for integration. So how? You know, how do you get on this MasterControl release train? Let's take a look at, you know, what a traditional release cycle looks like versus the new frequent release cycle. So this is the way that we've released software at MasterControl since we began. You know, V11 released here in Q3 of 2014. If we remained on a traditional release cycle, you know, V12 maybe 2 years down the road. You know, it could be even longer than that. You know, it just depends on what's going into the product there. Has anyone ever felt like this when a new MasterControl release drops? You know, trying to swallow the elephant, so we say. You know, V11 has a massive number of changes in it. And consuming that, especially if you've gone, you know, 2 or 3 releases since you did your last upgrade, it feels a lot like that. Uncomfortable. It's not a pleasant thing, right? Thousands of changes in version 11. Almost 15,000 changes in there. Bug fixes, enhancements, tweaks here and there. That's a lot of stuff to take on. Requires extensive planning. When you go into one of these major upgrades. Lots of admin and user training. Things change. You got to get them accustomed to the new platform, especially if it's been a number of years. Lots of validation if you're a life sciences company. It's always something to consider. Upgrade testing is part of that validation process, right? It's a significant project in your company, and it's usually accompanied by a significant budget to get that upgrade through the system. Really what happens is it delays the upgrade, right? It makes the problem worse. So it's one of those things that you don't look forward to, so you put it off as long as you possibly can. And if we go back to that mission statement, how do we get more value to you sooner? This traditional release cycle is not helping that. So what are the problems for us as a vendor on a traditional release cycle? It's a lot of changes to manage in a major release like this. As the platform gets bigger, it takes longer and longer to push that through the system. Knowledge transfer waterfall. How do we get the knowledge transferred to our own internal people? How do we get it transferred to you? How do we get it transferred to our partners out throughout the world? It's a lot of stuff to deliver and to consume. It's a non-routine release process. If you think in your own company, how many people change in a 3-year time span? New employees, people leave, people move into different positions. That happens at MasterControl too. As our development staff grows, if we go 3 years between major releases, there's a significant part of our development staff that will have never been through a major release. And this is a problem that many software vendors are facing today. And then you get the pressure of the release. Okay, well, we don't want to put it out there before the quality is good enough. But you get the pressure, well, why is it late? Why is it late? So there are all kinds of things. And this is the one that concerns me most, the inventory. For 3 years, there have been enhancements in that V11 that we couldn't get to our customer base because we hadn't released it yet. So old version symptoms. I'm sure some of you have heard these before. You call up tech support. There's a bug. Tech support says, oh, it's been fixed. Ooh, but it's not on the version you're on. We need to upgrade. Same holds true in services. There's a solution that they may have, but it's not on the release you're on. Sales, we run into this one all the time. Oh, there's this great new product, but it's not on the version you're on. So we're trying to eliminate those symptoms. So real problem. I mentioned this. We can't get the value of the software that you purchased and you pay maintenance on to you soon enough. So the frequent release cycle. This is what it looks like. If no one's going like this yet, you probably should. Or maybe you just missed it. It is, in fact, a quarterly release cycle. So will we release a version 12? We don't know at this point. But we will release several versions on the 11.0 platform. So how do we build frequent releases? How does this process work? We've been using agile software development principles for a long, long time, since I've been here. Lots of books out there. This is all the rage in the software development world. Release early, release often. There's a tighter feedback loop between you, the customer, and us, the vendor. More frequent, effective user input, and higher software quality, lower risk, because you're dealing with a smaller number of changes in any given release. Brian does like to say we were agile when agile wasn't cool. Question in the back?
Yeah, we have category 5 software
So you've built custom software on top of MasterControl?
That's what I feel, not for us.
Okay, yeah.
And therefore, I think we don't have benefit of frequent release, but it's only the problem that we always have to do our complete validation.
Yeah. The key with doing that type of thing is utilizing the APIs within MasterControl. Those APIs will not change from release to release, so that you don't have that risk going forward in a frequent release strategy. So we will maintain those APIs. We make APIs more and more available to the broader set of the MasterControl functionality. That's one of the main pushes on version 11, so that you don't have that problem. We understand that, and you don't have to upgrade, but we would certainly do everything we can to encourage you and help you to do that.
So a help would be if there would be a tool where we can say we can make our tests, implement these tests in the tool and get something like an automatic regression testing.
Yep.
Is this such thing available?
Yeah, we utilize that type of software in our own SQA process. We use a package called Mercury Quick Test Pro. It's actually acquired by HP a number of years ago. And we've created automated scripting tests that test regression in MasterControl. QTP, and look for it under the HP name. There are a number of others out there as well, but this is a standard in software development these days. Okay?
You can deal with the way MasterControl is dealing with Windows and
Yes.
Windows projects.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
Is it possible to have an overview on the regression tests that have been done by MasterControl so we know where the risks are for each upgrade?
Yes, I'm going to talk about that. Okay? That's an important part to less validation on a frequent release strategy. So when was our first frequent release? Anybody know? Raise a hand. MasterControl employees, anybody know when our first frequent release was? Chris, you look like, what version?
Version 2.
What, version 2? I don't think we have version 2. It was over 5 years ago. We've been doing this for a long time already. Our first limited frequent release was MasterControl 8.1.1. How many of you are on a ... release right now? Should be nearly everyone, unless you're way back. So you are already on a frequent release today. We released those limited frequent releases every 2 months. We've been building up to this for a long time. Over time, we've experimented with introducing a limited number of enhancements into those frequent releases. So it's, again, we've been agile for a long time. We're committing to it. We're going to a full frequent release strategy. Add into that lean principles. I don't know how many of you have met our Executive Vice President of Operations, Craig Geegy. I think Craig has been over to one of the conferences at some point. You see his name here. He wrote the book on Six Sigma and lean principles. So we've incorporated a lot of those lean principles into our software development lifecycle. It's very much synergistic with agile principles. If you change some of the names in lean manufacturing, it looks like agile SDLC. So reduce waste, right product, right amount, right timing. Level loading, closer to single piece workflow. You know, for those of you that manufacture product, this is motherhood and apple pie, we say in the US. We're preaching to the choir. And then this bottom one, reduce inventory. Again, we want to get that value to you sooner. So we take an example from our training module here. We improved the class's calendar navigation back in July of 2011. That was a long time ago. Why doesn't the trainee have a training task? How many of you asked that question before? Well, now it's very easy to see that. That was developed in May of 2012, March of 2012. SCORM compliance came in July of the same year. Well, version 11 didn't release until August of 2014. So that stuff sat on the shelf in MasterControl offices, unable to be delivered to you because it was in a release that hadn't dropped yet. When it actually gets used, well, how long will it be before your company upgrades to V11? You know, it could be 4 or 5 years that those enhancements have been sitting on the shelf waiting to get into your hands. So MasterControl V11, this is the last major release, ooh, look at it, on the traditional release cycle. It came out towards the fall of last year. How many people know, well, I probably gave it away earlier, how many frequent releases have we had since then? 2 of them, right? So 11.2 is in the mainstream right now. 11.3 is coming in the first part of June there. It is the foundation for frequent release. You have 15,000 changes. We did a lot behind the scenes in the product to prepare for this type of release cycle. So what is the train? Again, I mentioned earlier, it's a schedule. The MasterControl release will come out every quarter of the year. It will have a much smaller number of changes than, say, a V11 will. But again, that poses less risk to you as our customer. So here it comes. The train, 11.3, 11.4, will be at 11.5 before the end of this year. So we're taking what used to be a 6-month development cycle and delivering it every 3 months. Our development team is much larger than it used to be. Our SQA team is much, much larger than it used to be. Documentation people that are working on things like release notes to make this easier for our customers to digest. We've invested significantly in the staff to make this happen. Includes fewer changes, as I mentioned, 1,000-ish versus the 15,000 that are in V11. Larger changes in the product will span multiple releases. So there's actually a methodology that we use called feature flagging, or dark features. It allows us to start development in, say, 11.3, continue in 11.4, and then deliver to you in 11.5. It's in there, but it's flagged. It's not affecting the code, so that we're able to span very large changes in that frequent release cycle. Increase in automated testing. This goes back to Peter's question earlier. We do a lot of automated testing on the product. It's really the only way to enable this type of release strategy. Automate our internal validation process. So we're able to run our entire suite of validation scripts on the product on a near daily basis. So anytime we make a change, we commit code, we run the validation suite. That's happening over and over and over again in the development process. We need to optimize our internal release process. How do we compress the time frames to get the documentation ready, to make sure that validation documents are available when that new release comes out? All kinds of things that are happening there. Automating the upgrade process. Upgrades used to take a really long time. Now the ability, we've built the tools into the product to make it very easy for our support folks to go from 11.3 to 11.5 or 11.4 or whatever it may be. It's a very quick process. And then improve our release communications. This is very important. Communicating to you what the risks are, what's changed in an easy to read format. How many people have seen the new release notes yet? They're on the customer website. Lowe, what do you think? Improvement over what they used to be?
Well, it's the first time I go through, but you can go through, yeah.
Yep, it much, much better. The format is consumable. There's a summary, some really good things happening on the release notes side. So how do you adopt this frequent release train? Does anyone eat a steak in one big bite? That's kind of tough to do, isn't it? Evan?
I is taking one big bite.
Yeah. We learned that Evan has the biggest head in the room. I imagine that goes with the biggest mouth, too. So. You take it in bite-sized chunks, don't you? Fewer changes. That's the important part. These are bite-sized chunks, not a whole steak at one time. Requires less planning, less training, less validation, less upgrade testing, less project, and less budget. Becomes routine. You know, it's something, you get a process around it, bam, bam, bam. Happens all the time. So let's talk about adopting it. Improved release notes I talked about already. The multi-release validation planning, because it's on a very predictable schedule, just like our dot releases always have been, it's much easier to lay out that validation plan, knowing when things are going to drop. Less admin and user training. You know, as we go through this initial push of UX, there might be a little more, but once that's done, you know, being able, the users train themselves. Small changes mean less validation, automated upgrades. It's a repeatable project, something you can do over and over again. Again, predictable schedule and budget becomes ordinary. Something that you're accustomed to doing. It happens very quickly. This is just an example of the summary in the release notes. This is from 11.2. You can see module by module very quickly. Oh, here's kind of a summary of the new things that went in. And then down below that on the website, you'll see all of the detail of the individual bugs and enhancements that were fixed. A subset of our customers today, some of our newest customers, are using what we call managed upgrades. We are automatically upgrading them in our hosted environment. This is something they choose to do. It's not forced on anyone, but it provides a number of benefits to them. You know, MC University, I might point out, you know, this is recorded training that can be pushed out to your users. You don't have to worry about individually training these folks. All kinds of benefits there. How does this work? So 60 days before the release, a notification goes out, what we call our preview environment. Anyone that wants to see the upcoming release of MasterControl, you can sign up for the preview site. It's out in the cloud. You can access it whenever you want. It automatically gets upgraded 60 days before we release the software. So you can see what's coming down the pike. 30 days before we release, we notify those customers and we upgrade their test environment automatically. They then go through their PQ testing and they get upgraded when the software releases. So in a 60-day time frame, they're going through all of their testing, their validation process, automatically comes out and upgrades. Frequent versus traditional. You know, swallowing the elephant or taking bite-sized pieces. You know, that's really the choice here. So if we look at release frequency continuum, you know, if there are companies out there that release software daily, you know, obviously there's a very small number of changes there. As the time frame goes out, the number of changes increases dramatically. So how many people are Android people? There's still a few of us left. I used to be until I started traveling internationally. And then I went to the iPhone. How many people use an iPhone? Yeah, most of the room here. So is frequent release bleeding edge?
What about the Windows Phone?
Windows Phone, there are a couple, yes. Anybody using Windows Phone? I know Scott and ours. Yeah, there's a few here. So,
about 133,000 in our company.
How many?
133,000.
Jeez. All Windows Phone, huh?
Windows platform.
Well, very good. So, any of these platforms, you're already on a frequent release with them. How many people auto-update their apps? My apps just come down as updates come down. You know, this is a frequent release thing. Well, what about enterprise software? Is there enterprise software out there doing that? We use a number of tools inside MasterControl that are on a frequent release strategy. Often you don't even know when they release, when they got an upgrade. Concur, NetSuite, and Salesforce are 3 tools that are integral to our business operation. They are all on a frequent release strategy. What about regulated companies? Are there regulated companies out there using software on a frequent release strategy? Abbott's been doing it since 2009. GE Healthcare since 2010. Medtronic since 2011. We've been going to the validation conferences for years now and having life sciences companies stand up and talk about what their validation strategy is in the cloud for frequently released software products. And even operating systems. We hear that Windows 10 will be the last major Windows release. After that, it will be a 10.1, 10.2, 10.3. The point is that this has been going on for a number of years. It is the norm in software today. So if you've ever been to Utah, there's a place called Promontory Point. This is where the Transcontinental Railroad in the United States came together, east and west and that. And they drove a golden spike into the railroad to join them together. But was the value in the connection itself, or did it come in being able to deliver things across the country? It's being able to deliver that value to you, to get that train out on a regular schedule so that you know what's coming down the pike and you can consume those enhancements in a much shorter time frame, like the ones that we came up with as teams. Instead of waiting 4 or 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 months. Big difference there. So the MasterControl release train. All of these things that we talked about today, these are things already under development. Some of them are already in the product. Some are coming in a few weeks, some in a few months. Lots of exciting things going on. So really, we're making great products available to more people sooner by delivering that value to you. Now it's up to you to just get on board. If you'd like to know more about that, any of us are here throughout the rest of the day today. I know that Chris has a presentation on validation and how that pertains in the frequent release methodology. Might be a good one to attend and quiz him, see how up to date he is. So I think I have time for maybe 2 questions. Yes?
Preview environment, is that accessible to anyone?
It is. If you are interested in signing up for the preview environment, I will get you the email address. You just send an email and say, this is who I am, this is what company I'm from, can I get a user account? Okay? Other questions? And that is upgraded frequently. So you'll always be able to see what the latest software coming in. All right. Well, thank you very much. I think we have somebody much more exciting than I at this point. I believe Lindsay from Circassia is going to present next. There she is. She's not hiding. That's a good thing. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to her.